It took me a year and a half to beat Persona 5 Royal. I started it on the 16th of September 2021 and finished it on the 14th of February 2023. Over that year and a half, my taste in games had slowly moulded into what it is now, despite me falling slightly out of love with games within that period of time. Now you could say that a large reason for this is because Persona 5 Royal is a 150-hour game. However, I'd like to propose a different point: involuntary procrastination. You might say it's crazy to say that you want finishing a game that you want to beat because you're actively putting it aside. And you'd be right, because what I've decided to call involuntary procrastination is more complex than that, with the key word being involuntary. Involuntary means to describe an action done compulsively, without any control over said action. Procrastination is to put off doing something, so putting those two words together literally means unwillingly delaying an action. A study by Bruce A. Fernie on something they call the unintentional procrastination scale, or the UPS, which is basically just the same thing as what I've called involuntary procrastination, so I'm just going to call it unintentional procrastination for the rest of this video, states unintentional procrastination might be responded to with cognitive processes that are resource heavy, such as worry, rumination, and distraction, in a maladaptive attempt to control this behavior. So let's break that down real quick. Unintentional procrastination may be caused by emotions that are inherently substantial, so just stuff like stress and that. So what's this study trying to say? You can't finish video games you play because you've got a lot on? Well, no. I'm going to try and find out what really is the problem with why you can't get through that one game that's been sitting on your mind for the longest time. As always, my name is Gabe Royale, and you're watching Gabe Royale. What game is it that you're playing right now that you just can't finish? Your answer could depend greatly on why you can't finish it. If it's something like Dark Souls or Hollow Knight, I think it's quite clear that the main reason is probably just because the game you're playing is incredibly hard and you're struggling. Or maybe you are good at games, but you still can't get through them. For me, the game I'm struggling to finish is Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, all my friends tell me, trust me bro, you're just early into the game, it gets good later, which could definitely be true. I'm still only on chapter 2, but I'm going to propose a different perspective, which is the scale of the game. Red Dead 2 is 110 gigabytes. Do you know how mad that is? 110 gigabytes, that is just so crazy. And the thing is, it didn't even come out in the newest generation, it came out in 2018. The map is just huge, as I hear there is so much to do in this game. I, and maybe yourself depending on what game you're playing, I'm likely just scared of the sheer size of this game. We have absolutely no idea where to start, what to do in this grand world. Listen to this. As an example, when I started chapter 2, I was offered multiple things that I could do around the camp. I wanted to look around the camp and see what it had to offer me that might help me later in my playthrough, but as I accidentally interacted with an NPC that I assumed was just going to have a small chat with me or something, I accidentally set off the first quest I did in the game. That quest being, God, I don't even know. As I looked through the list of missions in Red Dead 2 trying to find which mission I was doing, I just came across a massive list of different mission branches and sub-missions, but I'm now fairly certain that it was Polite Society, Valentine Society. But anyways, as this NPC approaches me and requests to do this quest, I'm aware of this honor system, and I don't want to do anything to have a low honor, so I accept the invitation and go off and start the quest I don't want to do. The size of this game and its mechanics is honestly just making me too scared to play this game in case I start a whole winding path of doing this and doing that and ending up in a place that I never wanted to be. I feel like this may also be the reason I couldn't finish Persona 5 Royal for so long. While I loved almost every second of the game, there was likely some sort of fear that was settling in my head, knowing that this game was like 100 plus hours long, not wanting to mess anything up and ending without doing what I wanted in my incredibly valuable first experience of the game. I wanted to max out all the confidants that I like and have all my social stats maxed out, and it was hard to balance all that with infiltrating the palace to progress the story, because bear in mind, I didn't want to know what would happen if I didn't finish the palace before the deadline, and I still don't because I was so scared of what might happen to my playthrough and how that might affect it, because when it comes to how I play games, I am generally a bit of a completionist. I didn't know how to tackle this fight, so that was likely where I failed to quickly finish this game. And now, with so many games being so much bigger than they were just 10 years ago, this fear is starting to set in with so many more games and so many more players are falling into this fear of choice. Because when it comes to it, picking what game to play out of the thousands that are out right now anyways is a monumental task as it is. And when the title is as big as Red Dead Redemption 2, it can be even harder to finish because of how many decisions are proposed to you. When it really comes down to it, there are times when I'm just not in the mood to play anything at all. There comes times where my brain completely switches off and doesn't even want to do anything as mindless as playing a game. Which is why when you already play a lot of games and you go to start a new one, you might be loving it at the start and you get to that middle point where you just slump into your chair and think, man, I do not want to do this right now. Most of the time it comes down to having other things you need to do. And when it comes to getting to that middle point of games, I won't go too deep into that, but to dumb it down, when the excitement of starting a new game fades or the anticipation of being close to the end isn't there yet, you might find the gaming experience simply quite boring. Think of Pokemon games. Where they aren't really too complex gameplay wise as they're for children and turn-based RPGs, they also aren't that thick in story most of the time, unless you're playing a Golden Age DS Pokemon game. Those times where you're just moving through a forest to go from gym to gym with no real hook is very dead. Speaking of dead, The Walking Dead is actually very relevant to this point. Most people's complaints about that show is that the same thing happens over and over. Zombies come along, they fight, people die, then they move, which ultimately leads to people losing motivation to continue watching. This repetitiveness is also quite common in games such as, surprisingly, God of War, because despite how rich those games are in story and characters, it can be boiled down to the same thing combat-wise. I know there were many complaints about Ironwood and God of War Ragnarok being very repetitive in terms of objective. This rough point of the game did lead to lots of people losing interest in the game and dropping it. Your attention span can only handle so much doing the same thing for hours. It's tragic that so many good games have points like this that lose the player's attention. So let's continue the chicanery about this unintentional procrastination from the start. I'd already mentioned the deduction that it all comes down to heavy emotions. However, another study by Dr. Hannah Rose also stated that the Osiankana effect, which is basically just a fancy way of saying the consequences of unintentional procrastination, describes a state in which not completing a task leads to intrusive thoughts, creating a strong desire to complete the brief. So the other way around to the first study that we looked at, this saying that heavy emotions comes of unintentional procrastination, rather than what causes it. But it also adds creating a strong desire to complete the brief. This sort of brings us to a point where we really have to dig deep into what is going on here. Instead of talking about game, let's talk about something else, like cleaning your room. Let's say that maybe you start to clean your extremely messy room and halfway through you become tired and decide to stop, at least for a while. After leaving it for a while, you look at your room and say, you know what, it's clean enough, but you'll still have that constant feeling in the back of your head saying that the job isn't done. Also, many people say that the state of your room reflects your state of mind, so a messy room means a stressed out person. So both theories about emotions causing procrastination and emotions coming of procrastination with the room obviously representing the game here, and the cleanliness representing the progress. So when the lingering thoughts of the unfinished game are there, it is still possible to just leave them be, with the knowledge that you've already experienced the game, and you don't really need to finish it. Now, that's not to say that you don't need to clean your room, you definitely should, but when you've already seen a great majority of what a game has to offer you, you don't have to worry about what happens at the end. Knowing that you've played it should be enough. Now, if you still want to finish whatever game it is that you're playing, that is an issue that I myself have no idea how to solve, since I struggle with it too, so you're gonna have to find another video for that. But this video is my best possible explanation for why you can't finish games, not how to finish games. But with that ends my explanation. Thank you so much for watching this video, because I'll be the first to admit it, it's not my best work ever. But I hope you did enjoy what I've put together here for you today, and if you didn't, then the comments are always there for you to feedback, so I can hopefully improve. My biggest video essay, which I've been working on since September of 2022, should not be releasing soon, and probably coming out early to mid 2024, as I've already said on my community tab. So please look forward to that, and please subscribe so you can be notified of that when it does happen. So yeah, thank you again for watching, and please do critique my video honestly in the comments, because I do know I can improve, but I'm just not exactly sure where to, so please let me know. See you in a bit.